Hello everyone, my name is Doug Bassett. I'm Senior Technical Instructor here at StormWind Studios, and I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine the other day, and we started talking about Azure because, I teach the heck out of Azure. I love the heck out of Azure. And we got into a discussion on what's a couple things that are really, really important to help us to secure Azure. And so, we talked for a while, and he said, maybe I ought to shoot a video on this. And I said, that's a pretty good idea. So welcome to these are the two things you really need to think about to secure Azure video. And one of the first things is well, why do we have to bother? Well, you know that there's all sorts of attacks going on, all sorts of things happening. And some of them have made the news. Encryption, ransomware, stuff like that has become real popular. And it's interesting because, for example, the pipeline. The pipeline, the attackers didn't attack the pipeline itself. What they did is they attacked the accounting system. And, if I'm sending down millions and millions and millions of oil and crude oil products and this and that and the other, I need to be able to know how to charge people. Otherwise, I'm just giving the stuff away for free. And so by encrypting the accounting database, they made it so that they couldn't transport the oil in the pipeline because they didn't know who to charge or how much to charge. And so one of the things that they did is they tried to pay the ransom. And paying a ransom seldom works. In fact, they discourage it. And if, FBI and NSA and all these find websites where you pay ransom, they will take out the website if at all possible. Because they got the decryption key and it didn't work. So what did they have to do? They had to pull it out from backup. So the first thing you need to do is you need to do backups. And what we do is we have recovery service vaults. Now, I talk a lot about recovery service vaults in the AZ 104, which is the Microsoft Azure Administrator class. But you're going to see that recovery services vaults are really all over the place in our classes, because even if you have all this redundancy and this, that, and the other, you still want to be able to have backups. So let's go ahead and look at some of the features in this recovery services vault. Now, you have what is called the 3-2-1 rule. You want to have three different copies. You want to have it on 2 different media, and then you want to have a remote copy. That's 3-2-1. So 3 different copies, 2 different media, and then a remote copy. And what some folks will do is they will just do a local backup, or they'll just have the data there, and then they will make another copy of it up into Azure. Now, one of the cool things about the recovery services is that I can have agents. So if I wanted to back up things like the stuff I have, the stuff that I have here, where I would want to back up my on-premises systems. Maybe I have some Windows machines, maybe I have some Linux machines. I want to be able to back them up. I can put agents there. Now, up in Azure, any virtual machines that you've created in Azure that you didn't just upload from your on-premise Hyper-V servers, they already have the agent on there as well, and then you can do backups. But how does that help us with a 3-2-1 rule? Well, by default, you're going to have 3 copies because you have local redundant. It's just going to be there. But the problem is that if that data center goes down, then you're going to lose all the data. So if we go into our properties and we look up the backup configuration here, so we say backup configuration, you'll notice that by default, when you create a recovery services vault, it is going to be geo-redundant, which means I'm going to have another copy in a paired region that is at least 150 or so miles away from the primary region. So that takes care of the one. So we have 3 local copies. So I have 3 copies of it locally stored in the Azure cloud. Then I have it on a couple different mediums. I have the local copy and I have the ones up in Azure. And we are geo-replicating it out to another location. And we do have to pay for data exfiltration costs. And so, there's going to be a little bit of a price involved in there. So, and this is there by default. Now, once you start securing these particular backup loads, you can't change this. So you want to make sure that this is set up in there. But you'll also notice that we have cross-region restore. This is a new feature, and what's actually pretty cool in here is that you can make it so that if I have a virtual machine that's protected in like US 2, and I am having it replicate over to another region because I'm doing all the data replication, I can actually restore it in that other region. Now, the gotcha on this is that if you turn it on, you can't turn it off. So just be aware of that. And they have this for drills and all this other good stuff, which is really nice. And it is available for virtual machines. It's still in preview for your HANA databases, SQL databases, but it is right now non-reversible. So once you set it up, then it's going to be allowed. So you want to be able to do that. But the other thing I want to show you is your security settings. And inside the security settings, one of the things that you may want to do is you may want to do multi-factor authentication. So that if somebody wants to go in and try and fiddle with your backups, make sure that they are who they say they are and use role-based access control and all that other good stuff. But you also want to have your soft delete. And the soft delete is, again, turned on by default. And what this does is if you delete it, you can say, well, maybe I don't really want to delete it yet. And so you'll have a little bit of time to be able to pull this stuff up. Now, the big thing, though, is we have security features. Now, by default, they are enabled. However, we need to do some additional stuff to get it in. So, for example, once you put in a MAB agent or you set up a backup server or using a data protection manager, then you can get all of these security features. And they do show you all the things that are enabled and all the things that are disabled. So retention of deleted backups, minimum retention range checks, you can pull those in, alerts and notifications, and multiple layers of security. You want to be able to have all of these components in there. So you want to be able to do the backups, you want to make sure that your components are in there, and you also want to have multiple versions so that as the new backup occurs, you are not going to be just overriding the top, overriding the top, overriding the top, because a lot of times when they have these encryptions, those encryptions get promulgated to the other copies. And so this one encrypts and it encrypts this copy and the geo-redundant copy, but by having the versioning set up, you would be able to, you'd have multiple copies and you can go into an earlier version if that is what you want to do. So, and they go in and they have, all sorts of different bits on here on being able to go in and recover all this stuff. So pretty good stuff. Now, here's the thing. When you have security problems, it is not necessarily going to be during normal working hours when these problems occur. And if they come in and they do their evil deed, it could take literally seconds for them to be able to do this. And so one of the things that we teach, and this is in the AZ 500, which is a security class, is we go in and we talk about security, because it's AZ 500, Microsoft Azure Security Technologies, but we talk about automated responses. And the idea behind an automated response is I don't have to wait until the administrator goes in and looks at the logs, goes in and looks at the alerts, goes in and does this. We want to have all this stuff set up automatically as much as possible so that when there's something that happens based on a metric, based on performance, based upon availability, based upon health, based upon activities and actions, we can have this stuff automatically fire off and restore servers or copy things over or make changes or do alerts or lock stuff out or do whatever it is we need without having to wait on the meat puppet here to try and make changes. And this is where we really get into Security Center. And Security Center is one of the main focuses that we have in the AZ 500 class because, it's Security Center, so there's just tons and tons of security stuff that's in there. So if I go back into here and I bring up my Security Center, one of the first things it's going to do is it's going to say, ooh, do you want to have Defender? Do you want to install this and install that? And as you add additional components like this, it is going to cost you more and more and more and more money. But one of the things I like about Security Center, and this is really the second most important tip. Try and automate this stuff, but really the second most important tip is a lot of things are already automated. So go in and read this stuff and find out what their recommendations are, and then determine if that makes sense in your arena. Now, I'm not advocating that you just blindly follow whatever Security Center says, because there's going to be some configurations that really doesn't work in your work center, doesn't work in your workload, doesn't work with your business processes, so you want to be able to customize it. But they do have some pretty good stuff. So they said, oh yeah, we are 2 out of 3 is completed on our controls to harden it, and we have 8 out of 10, and they will go in and they'll show you how you can actually improve your security score. So they say, oh yeah, we're actually 4 of 14 points, and yeah, we have some problems associated with here, and they have some recommendations that say, hey, what can we do to go in and harden our system? And they give you lots of information. Now, where are all these recommendations coming from? Well, we talk about security baselines. So specifically in the AZ 500 course, there's all sorts of different security baselines. So if you're doing credit card processing, you have PCI baselines. These are just the Azure security benchmarks. These are the best practices that the industry recommends. And so they go in and they give you all sorts of recommendations in here to try and figure out, oh, okay, well, what is it that I could actually do in this system? And they say, hey, you know, here's some of the recommendations that we have. You can pull down the report, but they will go in and do recommendations all the time. And you really, really, really want to go in and find out what they're recommending and then decide, you know, talk with the stakeholders, follow your change control process, and determine what works in your environment. So remember that security is not a one-size-fits-all. So number one, do your backups. Make sure you have backups. Make sure you're following the 3-2-1 rule, redundancy, versioning, all that other good stuff. And then number two, try to automate the responses as much as possible. But remember, Microsoft Azure has already added a whole bunch of stuff, and they have lots and lots of recommendations, and you want to go through and look at those. And those can help automate a lot of those responses. So if you do have any questions, feel free and email me, doug.bassett@stormwindlive.com, 2 S's and 2 T's. And I hope to see you in one of our classes real soon. Have a good one.